planning board meeting to order. Matthew, have you had opportunity to check roll call?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. We have 8, Mr. Chairman, we have 8 present, which is a quorum to proceed.
All right. New business, appointment recommendations. We have current planning board members. Ms. Perkins, Mr. Cheek, Ms. Graves, and Blake. I spoke to him today and he's up in there. He said, whatever, fine. New applicants, we have Mr. David Hadley, Catherine Dickens, Lee Isley, Max Morgan, Michael Owens, Henry Chandler, William Vines Jr., and Lindsay Causey.
Is that all of them?
It is. Board of Adjustments will cross in just a little bit. We're going to be concerned with planning board members first. Would any of the applicants care to speak and introduce yourself?
I've heard him speak a few times, but I'm Max Morgan. I'm a lifelong resident of Alamance County. I live in the Melville Township. I manage P. Morgan Enterprises, where we operate and develop mobile home parks and RV parks in Alamance County. I also have a real estate firm, Morgan Land and Homes in Mebane. The reason I want to be on the planning board is to help guide and have positive input on the future growth of Alamance County. I would like to help better shape Alamance County for its people. And if I was on the planning board, I would like to see us protect property values and connect people with the community. With my knowledge of land and development in this county, I can bring positive and productive input to the planning board. And this, I'm not sure. And I believe also I'd be a good asset for the Board of Adjustments. I understand the UDO and the ordinances of the county, which will help me help the board make knowledgeable decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan.
Any questions?
I guess I was prepared to speak as well. David Hadley. I've been a lifelong member, a resident of Alamance County, live in Graham into Albright Township. And I don't think there's anybody representing Albright Township at this point. But I've been in business as a home builder for about 35 years. I started in 1987. Been involved in the local home builder association for many years and served on the board of directors for a total of 28 years. I've been president of the association for 3 different terms. Certainly, I know many of you guys, Sandy and Rodney and Ray, spoken with Stephen, Ian and some others. You know, they've all encouraged me to apply, and I was actually last year appointed to represent the planning board, but then the county commissioners had voted someone else in at that point, and I appreciate it. But you know, at the time, you know, I just want to serve the community in any way I can. I think, you know, my experience as a home builder can offer a positive perspective to the board here, and don't have any other agenda other than just being part of the community and being able to serve.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Henry Vines. My first name is William, but everybody knows me as Henry. I think for the opportunity to speak tonight, I'd like to serve on this planning board because I'd like to see this county be planned in a structured way. I've served on many committees through the years about planning for this county. I served on the advisory steering committee that for the zoning. I was on that. I've been on I've served as president of Farm Bureau here in Alamance County. I've worked on the state board of North Carolina Farm Bureau. Been active in this county my whole life. I've lived here my whole life. I've been here 70 years. And I would just like to see us as a planning board, if I'm selected, to lead this county in a planned growth. If we don't do this, we're going to continue to have these things that were happening right now of residents next to businesses, and farms need to be protected. I'm a farmer, been a farmer for over 40 years. And I'd appreciate y'all's consideration on this board. I thought about these, being on these boards. I've been on so many, over the years, and it would be my pleasure to serve the community. It's always been my pleasure to serve the community of Alamance County, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Vines.
Good evening. My name's Henry Chandler. I'm here before you again for the planning board. You'll notice, similar to Max, my name is on both of the committees as far as being an applicant. When the county commissioners reduced the number of planning board from 13 to 9, I didn't know where I really stood with that, because there was 5 people coming back. 4 people had an option of coming back. 1 possibly may not come back. I left at the time an open position for 1. I know the planning board nominated David previously, and Lee Isley, I think, served before, so that put me at the best a distant third. So I put in for the advisory for the adjustment board as well. So my story is not much different. I've been living here all my life. My family's traced back here from the mid-1800s. I'm retired. I serve on the Agricultural Advisory Board for Farmland Preservation, so I understand Mr. Vines' concerns. Serve as board of directors on my fire department and deacon in my church. So I love this county, and I want to serve this county, especially in my retired years. So thank you both. And I'll let y'all decide what you want to do. Either one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Good.
Everybody.
Is everybody good? All right. All right. We've heard from several folks in the crowd tonight. I think the ones that have not came, that are not here tonight, most of us already know them very well. I've known Mr. Vines for several years. His dedication to the ag community is very well respected, and he would serve the planning board in a great manner. Mr. Chandler happens to be a neighbor of mine right around the corner. I know his family very well. They're still folks. How you figure? Okay. There's less going on in my community than there does in others. I can assure you that. Ike Holt, he was chair of this planning board when I came on in '96. So I myself have applied to be on the Board of Adjustments. I'd like to have Mr. Chandler and Mr. Holt come with me. Mr. Vines will be a fine addition to the planning board. With that being said, I'm leaving it up to you guys and ladies.
How does it work? Are we reappointing the ones, or voting to reappoint the ones that he's reappointing, and then going for more members, or how are we doing?
I think we're starting a new list.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we printed up, I guess you might call them ballots, just some sheets of paper here with the incumbent, or not necessarily the incumbent, but the board members who are not going anywhere, at the top, space for recommendations below that, and then blank spaces at the bottom there for the Board of Adjustment. You don't have to use these. We just thought this might be a useful organizational tool as you're considering candidates and debating and jotting down notes and all the rest. And we've got duplicates, so if you want to scratch through and get a second one, I've got a second one you can have.
I think I want to know just the ones that are up for reappointment to make sure to see if they want to be come back. I think I missed that meeting, so I apologize, but I want to know, I guess, out of the four, I know Blake's not here to answer, but the other three, are you willing and wanting to come back? I think is the only question.
I spoke with Blake in depth today, with his personal obligations and things he's got going on. He has no problem if he does not get reappointed.
Sandy, Amy, and Rodney.
I'm happy to come back if it's the pleasure of the board and the county.
Well, question I have is, Rodney, you produced a letter.
Yeah, but we ain't talking about letters now.
Okay. That would make a difference of what's the number is gonna be.
Well, based on this ballot, the rules today are 9. So, in other words, it's gonna be a little bit of a shuffle to get that reversed and get it back where it needs to be. My intention, that when it gets down in the agenda part where it says discussion, I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. If y'all wanna move down and have that discussion now, we maybe could.
Mr. Chair, should we have that discussion now?
It may not be a bad idea. Let's go ahead and do it.
Yeah, because I think that'll probably affect what names go up.
Okay. Not wanting to keep beating a dead horse, but I'm like everybody else in October. What I heard and what I understood was the county from a staff level was looking into maybe streamlining the planning board. Now, if y'all heard different from that, just tell me my ears ain't working or whatever, but that was my takeaway from the announcement. Understanding a little bit about how things work and timing and what it takes to make stuff work and be in compliance with the rules. If in fact it is in compliance with the rules. A lot of that restructuring this board was already either in the works or just on the cusp of being done. So now it seems to me like that it was kind of a sarcastic courtesy that we were informed of what was going to happen, because it was kind of like that right there. We heard about it, bam. Now, if you back the calendar up, there was enough time to publicize the public hearing part of it, so that when the commissioners talked about it as in compliance, I do not try to follow the commissioners. I don't have time. I'm not 100% sure that the people in Alamance County who do follow the commissioners understood, based on their published agenda, that they were going to restructure the planning board at that meeting. Now, again, I'm just sharing with you where I am. At our next meeting, if I'm still a member, I'm gonna make a motion that we send the commissioners a letter and request them to undo
what has just been done with some why, in my opinion, it should be undone. And at that point, if they do, then we'd have a place on here for 13 members. With that being said, if we prepare for a 13-member board now, then when the time comes, they're in a position to either make a decision or not, or do their own thing or whatever. So that's kind of where I am in my thinking.
So basically go ahead and choose a roster for 13, should they go ahead and reverse what they've done. And then they can just go ahead and accept the nominations or not.
If we don't, then we're gonna be back here having to go through this.
2 or 3 more meetings doing the same thing all over again. Yeah.
That's my take on it now.
Yeah.
You weigh in from staff as if I'm wrong, now's a great time to say, you're wrong, here's why.
Procedurally, I don't think that's incorrect. I think if the board wanted to make that advisory motion in January, I think that would be procedurally fine. We talked a little bit about this earlier today. I think you're a little bit hemmed in by the fact that right now you're in a special meeting and you can't really conduct any business other than the purpose of the meeting. But from a procedural standpoint, yeah, if the board wants to make a recommendation in January to move back up to 13 members, then you're perfectly within your right to make that recommendation.
Should we
Now, and sorry, I didn't interrupt.
No,
but
no.
The only other thing there is, if the board does essentially nominate or recommend a full 13, and then obviously the commissioners say, no, it's going to be 9 and that's it, it's just going to be 9, then you just would have the extra 4, whoever they may be, you'd have that extra 4 just kind of hanging out there. So just something to think about. But from a procedural standpoint, if the board wanted to do that in January, I don't think there's any issue with that at all.
From a legal perspective,
I agree.
Okay.
Yep. So do we send them enough names for 13, let them pick 4 they want?
Well, what would be the difference when we sent them names last year and they just pretty much threw them away and picked what they wanted anyway?
And I've got another question too. This right here says current members. I thought Julian W. was.
well, he's moved.
Okay.
The way the color code reads,
He's done moved on.
Oh,
Yeah,
color keys. Yeah.
that part is, I had to study it a little bit.
Yeah, I see it over here
Yeah,
now. So.
right.
I don't know if I'm allowed to see anything from the public side, but, yeah, I didn't, when I was voted in last time, I told Tanya, I said, well, I hadn't heard anything. She said, well, they voted somebody else in, and I didn't know that I need to do a political campaign with the commissioner.
Yeah.
Okay,
Which,
so
I mean, I don't mean to be that way. I'm just saying I was going to do it because I was asked to and wanted to serve. It's just that, you know, I didn't realize that they lorded over the planning board, if you want to call it that.
well, that's a great set of words. Can I talk a little bit?
Sure.
This board has no authority. It's a group now of citizens of Alamance County. It is a volunteer board. We serve at the pleasure.
Wait a minute, you're not getting paid for this?
No, sir. Not even Christmas. Not even.
Of the county commissioners. And when everything works correctly and there's an issue, this board does the research on planning issues to get the answers to the questions. And based on that research, they make recommendations to the commissioners who should have, we'll just say, bigger fish to fry in the running of Alamance County, so that they don't have to be out here with a tape measure saying, you're 3/4 of an inch too close to the property line, you can't do this. So when our work gets to them, they're supposed to be able to say, okay, well, the research has been done here, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, but this won't work. Now, if you're willing to move it a foot back because this property line runs askew, then you'll be in compliance, you can do that. And if the guy says, I want it right here, I ain't gonna have it. And the commissioners are supposed to be the one to say, okay, well, in that case, you don't have it. And if the person doesn't agree with that, then they appeal that decision to Superior Court. and then the judge rules on it. And this is just like everything else. If you willing to spend enough money on it, you can get your way. We talk about septic systems. All of our conversations is relative to a conventional system. If you willing to spend enough money, you can put a septic system across a swamp and drain it in a pond. Now, the government you'd have to get their money to pay that bill, but it can be done. So this whole thing in here is just a cog on a big gear that hopefully when they all turn and mesh, everything works right. So when we made a recommendation to the commissioners to appoint you to this board, that's all it was, a recommendation. There was no vote. There was no, we voted on it, but our vote was unanimous in recommending David Hadley to serve on the planning board. And we had no precedent to think otherwise, so we just naturally assumed that that was it, but it didn't work out that way. So, you know, and now here we are less than a year later, and we're changing up the structure of the board, the size of the board, and with everything that's going on, not just here in Alamance County, but North Carolina and around the world, because you know we all know what an onion is, and you can in fact take one layer off of an onion, but the whole thing's still onion. So for us to sit here and say that we're just this one layer in here, that ain't the best business plan. We need to be looking at the big picture, in my opinion, and we need to be preparing for what's going on. And with that, I think it's a bad time to go cutting the members on this board that you was voted in. And I'm talking to you, but I'm talking to everybody. But
Well, I was just making a comment about what I experienced.
correct. And one, we appreciate you sharing your experience with us, because this is some more input we need to know. Number two, we appreciate your willingness to serve this community after having been besmirched as you were. And three, we thank everybody for their willingness to help, because government's job is to do the most good for the most people the most of the time. Because we know it ain't gonna suit everybody all the time.
Chair, I got a question about, I thought about this last time, very briefly brought it up, was I remember shortly after I had originally come on this board, we talked about bylaws, and there was a lot of discussion about bylaws. We had a vote on bylaws. Was this member reduction, would have needed a change of the bylaws? Because I thought there was in the bylaws about the amount of members. We talked about the amount of absences that was, and how we would address that sort of issue. And I don't remember in the last two meetings talking about the bylaws. How does that fit?
Go ahead.
If I might, I think we answered that question last meeting, but one of the things that we discussed is that the planning board has to be consulted and make recommendations on land use decisions before those can go to the board of commissioners to be considered. But decisions related to the formation, rules, and number of people on the planning board is not a development decision that requires planning board approval before submission to the commissioners.
And I remember you saying that last time, but what's the purpose of the bylaws then? Just tell me what that was like.
Well, okay, so from a legal perspective, if you would, this board exists due to an ordinance that the commissioners have set up that creates the planning board.
Correct.
The board then has a set of bylaws that it operates with and under and about.
Correct.
But the ordinance trumps the bylaws.
Correct.
Okay. So does that make sense, Bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the ordinance allows for the revision of the bylaws without involvement of the planning board, if that makes any sense.
Don't none of it
Well,
really make sense.
only time it makes sense is when you go back to the fact that this board has no authority. We serve at the pleasure of the commissioners who make the decisions in Alamance County. When you put that in there, it makes perfect sense to me.
So looking at the bylaws, article, I guess it's Article 4, board membership, then all planning board members shall be appointed by the Alamance County Board of County Commissioners in accordance with the Alamance County Planning Ordinance. The membership of the planning board shall comprise of 13 members. So that means, then we should have some new bylaws then shortly, right?
Well, at minimum, we'll need to change that provision to be in concert with the UDO.
Or if the ordinance says 13, they'll change the ordinance.
They've already done that.
Okay.
Isn't that correct?
Correct.
When they had their November meeting after we were informed, they checked, they made that change.
Okay.
Now, all they got to do is put it on the agenda, announce that they're gonna have a public hearing on it, and set up here just at the same table and vote and change it back. So it ain't about like decide whether you want chili and onions on that hot dog at Zach's or not. I mean, it ain't no big deal,
Right.
but it's got to be done. Now, will they do it? I don't know.
I'm getting ready to spoil you cherry pudding, okay? When I came on this planning board in 96, every recommendation that was made to the commissioners was respected. They appreciated it. And if I ran into a commissioner out on the street, they told me to my face how much they appreciated what we were doing. I remember when we're gonna say the red tide come in, because I was sitting right here. Rod was the chair and a comment was made. And as soon as they did, I turned and I looked and I'm thinking to myself, you were elected to your seat. We were not. Okay. But basically what it boils down to, and I'm going to say this right now, the worst thing can happen is I can be escorted from the building. Okay. Whoever had the bright idea of messing with a planning board, going from 13 to 9, that's been here since 96, that I know for a natural born fact. I hope to happen. I hope to happen. That's just the way I see it. Because this is not right. There's 13 townships in this county. 13, not 9. So somebody needs to make up the idea which 4 is not going to get representation. Which 4? It's simple. Somebody came up with this bright idea. Kudos to them. I hope they enjoy the Christmas. Has everybody had opportunity to look over the balance?
We went to discussion, and I was gonna say something. I'm Amy Perkins, for those that don't know. I had applied with Mr. Hadley last year. I wasn't recommended. There were lots of qualified candidates. I went home and said, no big deal, because there were qualified candidates. I was very surprised when I was told that I got on the board. I have enjoyed the time. I've enjoyed the work. I think it's something that goes along with my business work. I am a contractor and I'm a family contract construction business, and we do a little bit of land development, not much, but a little here and there. I would love to serve again, but I understand that there's a lot of qualified people looking at all of this information. So, and I understand that it's all at the
Pleasure of the
the
commission.
pleasure, that's a good word.
Yeah, pleasure.
So, I would also like to ask one point of clarification from our last meeting and reading the ordinance or that establishes the Board of Adjustments. I didn't see anything in there that said that this board makes recommendations for those seats.
Correct, there's not. Yeah, this is the opportunity for the planning board to make recommendations on the Board of Adjustment really just arose out of y'all's debate about the various boards and the fact that there was a little bit of crossover between two, maybe three members who were either terming off the planning board and interested in the Board of Adjustment, or may just voluntarily move over to the Board of Adjustment. So it's just there for the opportunity for the planning board if you want to make a recommendation. You certainly don't have to, but it's just there to make an informal recommendation if you like.
Thank you. That's it.
Matthew, how do you want us to do this? Fill out these ballots and turn them in, tabulate them up? How you want to do this?
You certainly don't have to. Like I said, I just handed that out in case it would be useful as you guys deliberated and considered candidates. If you want to recommend 9, you can. I think if you want to recommend 13, you can. And we talked about what may go along with that, but it's really the discretion of the board, whomever you want to recommend and however you want to do it.
Did we already mention or discuss the fact if one individual can serve on both?
Yeah, I've got a couple
that
of
allowed or
questions
not?
about that. I don't think that there's anything in the UDO that forbids it from planning board members from serving on the Board of Adjustment and vice versa.
Okay. So I'd like to ask the ones that have expressed interest, that interested in the adjustment, Board of Adjustment, but also up for reappointment. I'm trying to correlate that on the list here. So I guess Sandy, you're up for reappointment, but also expressed interest in the Board of Adjustment.
I will do whatever the board wants me to.
Which would you have a
If you
preference
need
for? Do you have a preference?
I don't have a preference.
Okay.
Let me point out one thing to the board. There is an issue with some people perhaps being able to serve on both as a matter of law. So the law says in chapter 128 that a person can only hold one elective and one appointed position or 2 appointed positions in local government at any one time. So certain persons would not be able to sit on both boards and also be an elected official.
Because of
Keep
her
that in
position
mind.
on the school board.
Correct.
Okay.
So
Got
she
it.
would not be eligible to
Okay.
serve on both
She couldn't do
boards.
both
No,
and
I got
the other.
Right.
Well,
And
Nor
you
am
have to
I.
sleep and eat and all
Sorry.
that.
That's a
kind of
unique
stuff,
list.
so-
One or the other, if it's the pleasure of the
Right.
board.
Well, I'm gonna throw this in there just cause I'm just going to, okay?
Sure.
Sandy served on this planning board for quite some time with her experience as a realtor. With her being on the Board of Education, I think it would be imperative for her to serve on this planning board. I think she would serve better value here with her experience. That's my opinion.
Okay.
A motion for a recommendation.
I'm not making a motion. I'm the chair. I can't make a motion.
Can I?
You can.
Or are we gonna do this vote? I got a question for Henry. You not running for town commission? Why not? You didn't get before, but every time I watch a county commissioner's meeting, which I do.
They're exciting.
Yeah. Okay. Drag through the meeting.
Mr.
Always come
Vines,
up with points. The points, you know, the figures, you know, I mean, every reasonable information that should be able to help these people over there, that they never take your advice. It's what it is, but I like to run for county commissioner.
Mr. Vines, where you living at now?
Snow camp. On the suburbs of Snow Camp.
He's an active farmer. He lives in Snow Camp. He's been on the ballot before, have you not? I'm not making fun of you. I like you just fine. But he doesn't live in West Burlington. He's not part of a city somewhere. He does not ride a bicycle, and he does not eat something out of a blender. It's a popularity contest. Popularity contest is what it is.
Well, I've been told many times that you have too much common sense.
Oh, he don't play golf either.
No.
Ain't got nothing in this.
Huh?
Ain't got one of them in both.
It ain't a question where the golf course is at. It's the fact that he don't got the gloves and the shoes and the clubs.
Fancy pants.
Bingo.
So has the commissioners also created the Board of Adjustments? Does it exist?
Yes,
It's
sir.
just not staffed.
Yeah, the plan is to make those appointments at the second meeting in December and then formally seat the board in January.
Okay. So with that board in place, if the planning board deems something is out of compliance and denies it, the appeal goes to the Board of Adjustments.
Only if the planning board is making an administrative decision.
So it could feasibly go from you to the Board of Adjustments and not get involved. with the planning
Correct,
board.
yeah, in most cases, appeals to the Board of Adjustment, the boards of adjustment are administrative appeals. In other words, a staff member of the county or the jurisdiction makes a decision that a developer or somebody doesn't agree with, they appeal it to the Board of Adjustment.
So where my question is going is there potentially going to be a conflict of interest with a person serving on the planning board and then serving on the Board of Adjustments? Is that
I think there may, I mean, I don't know that I would speculate to say that there's an enhanced conflict of interest. There may be a situation where a planning board member, based on years of knowledge or certain experience with the development or whatever, has a fixed opinion that they're simply not going to move from. If that issue came before them, they would definitely vote yes or no, regardless of the presentation of evidence. In that situation, you would have to recuse yourself from the vote. But that's an individual based on a fixed opinion, not necessarily because you're a planning board member, but it may make you more susceptible to having a fixed opinion than others possibly.
Well, you know, there's a crop of folks running around this county. They always look for a reason to point fingers. And all due respect for the county, it'd probably be just as well off to have a standalone Board of Adjustments.
Well, that's what I think.
And,
I just think it's hard to serve two masters.
Well, it's just, the way I see it, and it's like what you're saying, if there is a dual role, and I mean, there is, there have been planning board members that served more than one committee, which is fine. But given the basis and the content of what the Board of Adjustment is going to be looking at, it could be counterproductive to have a planning board member and a Board of Adjustment being one and the same.
Yeah, I think typically the recommendation for best practice is that they're
Separate.
separate.
I think that makes sense. And I want to point out too, that even if there's not an actual conflict, if the person who is appealing believes that there is a conflict and then they decide they can't get a fair shake, they're more likely to appeal. So I think by having that there and having people know that there's that propensity, even if it doesn't affect the decision, we're liable to get more appeals to Superior Court. So my advice would be not to have concurrent.
They probably don't want to deal with stuff anyway. That's pretty cool.
I agree. I just think they need to be separate. Mr. Chairman, you have a.
Yes, sir.
I got a motion.
I'm listening.
We reappoint Amy, Sandy, and Rodney to start with.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We need one more.
I think, Henry Bonds would be a good addition to the board.
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
And we got 4 alternates. How y'all do that?
second?
All those in favor signify
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move that we recommend Lee Isley.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move we recommend for provisional board appointment Henry Chandler.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. One more.
Mr. Chairman, just to make sure we've got an accurate record. So I have to fill out position 6, 7, 8, 9, Amy Perkins, Sandy, Rodney, and Henry Vines.
That'd be correct.
And then I did not, other than Mr. Chandler, I did not jot down the additional.
David Hadley and Lee Isley.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move on this provisional ballot, we put Blake Cobb's name on there.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second? All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. All right. Let's see if we can't gather them up 5 to send to the commissioners for the Board of Adjustment.
Make a motion, we nominate you, Ray.
Second.
Did you want to hear from any specific Board of Adjustment applicants?
I think they've already spoken, the ones that
I
were here.
think we may have one applicant.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Just for the Board of
Planning
Adjustment.
board and then board of adjustment, not all at the same time.
Okay.
Now, fresh.
Yes, sir.
My name's Richard King, go by Tom. Lived in Alamance County 40 years. The other period of time I was at school or working out of town, worked for the city of Fayetteville. I'm a resident right now in Melville Township. Live right around Eastern Alamance High School. I'm applying for Board of Adjustment because right now I have been working 16 years with the town of Hillsborough, and I've got 26 years of experience working in local government, planning, and with the state. And of those 26 years, about 20 of it has been staffing boards of adjustment. I've worked for Harnett County, the city of Roxborough, Orange County, and currently town of Hillsborough. And I've been staffing their board of adjustment for 16 years. So I feel like my experience would be well served on a new board of adjustment. Be willing to work with you, Mr. Cobb, if you're going to be on it. Mr. Sheik, I appreciate your comments you've made tonight. They're very valid, and I've heard them before from lots of places. But that's about all I have. If you want to, I did work for a short period of time with Alamance County before I left and made a mistake and went somewhere else.
And you survived Orange County?
For about 3.5 years, and
You can't have the director job, I'm
for
sorry.
my mental health, I had to, I took a job, I took a vacation and went and worked for the State Department of Commerce for a while.
There you go.
So, yeah, I learned my lesson. It's a
Well,
different place.
That's definitely, yes, sir. If you can survive Orange County, you're pretty good.
I don't know. I'm a little shell shocked probably still, but yeah, they're horror stories. But yes, I was glad to get out. If you have any questions of me, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. King.
I do have a story about the city of Fayetteville. I applied down Fayetteville's Board of Adjustment, and they have like a scoreboard. And I got appointed to the Fair Housing Board. So the story of applying for one board and then winding up on another, I'm very familiar with. And I was like, okay, well, why am I here? But it was an interesting experience, but didn't get a lot of work done with that board. But anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King.
That was Mr. King.
Tom
Mr.
King.
King.
That's another point of order. You have alternates listed for, the Board of Adjustment,
Correct.
and there was discussion I saw in the last county commissioners about alternates and the number of alternates. Did we ever light on a number of alternates, or is that?
So they have not determined exactly how many alternates they plan to appoint for the Board of Adjustment. So General Statute 160D-302 says Alternates to the Board of Adjustment may be appointed in the same time, manner, and for the same term as regular members. So it's simply there again at the discretion of the planning board. If you want to recommend 5, you may also recommend 5 alternates, just by virtue of the way that the general statute allows for seating on that board. I'm an alternate, for example, I'm an alternate to the Caswell County Board of Adjustment.
So the Board of Adjustment will just have 5 members.
Correct.
That's the plan.
Okay.
And by law, it has to have an alternate or 2, and there was a discussion whether 5 alternates, 2 alternates.
I thought I heard 2.
It
I remember
doesn't
Turner
have-
was.
Yeah, it
going for
doesn't
2.
have, it does not have to have alternates, but if you have alternates, then the commissioners must appoint them in the same manner as regular members.
Gotcha. So we're gonna vote on primary members one at a time?
Yeah, so I think we got one already, Ray, recommended some, because we continue on down the line, do we get 5 and then?
5, okay.
Huh? Ray. Mhm, yes, I said. Not late. Right, that's what I said, Ray. And so, and then pleasure of the board, as far as how many alternates we want to recommend, if we have enough candidates for that many alternates.
Well, they may pick some of the alternates we picked for this board and put them on
That's a good.
as Board of Adjustment. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we place Tom King on the Board of Adjustment.
I'll second that.
Second.
All those in favor signify.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
As a point of order, we have the second for the nomination for Ray, but no vote yet.
Okay.
Oh,
Second.
call a question. Mr. Vice Chairman, you can call it.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second for some reason or another to put Ray on the Board of Adjustments. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Really? You sure, brother?
Smile and be happy. All right, so,
Are we caught up and current now?
all right, so we've got 2. We need 3 more.
Well, I'll make a motion for Isaac Holt the third.
Second.
All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
I move we recommend Mike Owens for the Board of Adjustment.
We have a motion, we have a second.
I second that.
All those in favor signify aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
That'll be fun. Gotta come watch it.
What do you nominate?
So real quick,
We need
I might
one
be
more.
playing catch up here. So if someone applied for the planning board, they can still be nominated for Board of Adjustment?
We had a
Not
couple
really.
of folks, at least I think, that applied for both.
Okay.
don't
I didn't
think
see Mike Owen's name on the Board of Adjustment applicant.
It's there. I've seen it.
Okay.
For Board of Adjustment? No, I think we just had 5, and I don't think Mr. Owens was on the list. The board can certainly recommend him to be on there. There's no problem with it.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I was wanting to clarify. I didn't know. I was just curious.
I don't think there's any issue with you all recommending folks that.
That aren't even,
Applied or not.
there's not
So they don't
really,
have to apply in order to be
I
recommended.
don't believe so. and
I don't
also
think
see
so
the
either.
issue with you recommending people for both.
Okay.
I just think there's an inherent issue perhaps with being seated on both.
Got it.
Or being recommended for both is not the same thing.
yeah, you can.
Sure. Got it.
Well, if we make standalone recommendations and we don't recommend one for both, that right there should make it a little bit more simple for the commissioner.
I agree. Yeah, I understand your point, but I'm just saying I don't want
Yeah.
to pin you in unnecessarily.
Thank you.
All right.
Got it.
We need one more for Board of Adjustment.
I guess for discussion, we originally discussed Henry Chandler being on the Board of Adjustment, and we recommended as an alternate to the planning board. So what's the thoughts of, recommending for the Board of Adjustments? Because if not, it's potential it won't be on either one of them if they deny it. I mean, I don't know, so I don't want to make the recommendation, but I was just bringing that up for discussion.
So, last year, we recommended Deborah Hyder for reappointment to this board. And did I understand you to say from a staff position, you did not still have her application?
Repeat the name again?
Deborah Hyder.
Deborah Hyder. Double check. I think we only looked at applications that came in this calendar year.
Okay.
It's possible we still have it on
Mike
file.
Owens says 22.
Oh, okay.
You have a couple in here for 22.
Okay.
It's very possible we still have it on file. I will double check.
Yeah, because our application is good for 2 years for consideration.
I'm not sure.
Typically.
I'm sure.
I thought I
That's how
remember
we've
seeing-
operated in the past.
Yeah,
But
okay.
I'm not sure what the official precedent is on that.
And I'm not sure that a person has to have an application to be considered.
Okay.
For the Board
And
of
nominated,
Adjustment.
right, and nominated. So I,
Okay.
I think that kind of moves the question of whether or not that application is still valid.
Understood. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I don't think there was, actually, when I looked on there, there wasn't even a place on the county website for the Board of Equalization. It had never been posted on there, so you really didn't have
You
It's
never,
you never had a place really to apply for the Board of Adjustment.
Yeah, we made sure it was added fairly recently. It was
Okay.
within the last
All
month.
right.
Yeah.
When I went on there, it was not.
He was talking about like last year or something.
Right, yeah, when I went on there earlier, it wasn't on there.
we do have her application on file from October 2022.
I move we recommend Deborah Hyder for appointment to this Board of Adjustment. And that way, at least you got a girl on it.
A girl.
A lady, a female.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Can I keep my ballot?
So we're going to do 5 alternates. I got a good, strong question about that 5 alternates number. Why we're gonna have 5 alternates when we don't have 9 alternates for planning board? I'm listening.
You want to answer?
Sure.
So because the Board of Adjustment hears quasi judicial cases where there's a presentation of evidence and there may be bias, as we talked about earlier, or a conflict of interest, there's a heightened circumstance by which a board member will have to recuse themselves. And so the general statutes require that if you petition for a variance, for example, if you're going to get approval to do something outside the regulations of the UDO, then the consent to be granted that variance must be a 4/5 majority. It can't be a simple majority. So you have to basically get a super majority of that 5-person Board of Adjustment. So because there's a little bit of an extra legal scrutiny involved with it, if you have 1 or 2 recusals, then you get into a situation where the applicant has to get a unanimous vote as opposed to a 4/5 vote. So the general statutes make allowance for the alternates to step in on the Board of Adjustment in those kind of sensitive conflict of interest cases.
Okay, so if that's the case, then why not have maybe 2 alternates?
Yeah, and so ultimately the decision of the number of alternates is going to be up to the county commissioners. I don't think that they've settled yet on the number of alternates, but as I mentioned earlier, the reason that you have 5 blank spaces on that page is because general statute says alternates must be appointed in the same manner as regular members. So I wanted to give the planning board maximum opportunity, if you're going to make recommendations on regular members, to also make recommendations on alternates.
Okay,
Makes sense.
we need 5 alternates, folks.
I'll nominate Lindsay Causey as an alternate.
Motion and second, all those in favor? Motion carries. All right.
Statement before I make a motion.
Go right ahead.
You don't always agree with a lot of point of views. Have someone who shows up continuously to express their point of view and their interest in this county. I think we ought to give some merit to that. And I'm gonna nominate Mr. Morgan for alternate.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Some more.
3 more.
3 more.
All right, well, okay, so we have
We don't have enough names.
9 planning board members that we're recommending and 4 alternates. Now, at this point, technically, we were planning board of 9, right? So would we recommend anybody from those 4 alternates, or are they just out there? They could be picked from by the county commissioners. Anyway,
Well, we're in the application deck. They can be picked too, it seems like,
I mean,
regardless of what we put on the ballot. Yeah.
so, I mean, for example, okay, in January, we send a letter of recommendation, hey, we want our 13 back, and then they say no, then no, we set it on 9, and that's just the way it is, right? And then you have these other 4 members here that, you know, a couple of them have expressed interest in where the other, you know, to do either one. How does that, that automatically part of the alternate list or part of the nominees, or how does that work?
Let me just reintroduce the discussion. One of the things that came up in the board meeting, talking about the Board of Adjustment, one of the suggestions made was that there be a pairing between a member of the Board of Equalization and a commissioner, and the commissioner would serve as an alternate if that person were to rotate off based on a conflict or at the beach or whatever else. So I don't know if that's an idea that you want to discuss or think about and give a position on. That would certainly eliminate having to come up with 3 more names out of thin air, but that's one of the schemes that I think a lot of places tend to use as a possibility for alternates. It's certainly a way to do it.
There's some thought that the commissioners need to be serving as that board. The county doesn't have zoning. So, you know, this changes up the whole paradigm. If you got zoning, if you don't, and we don't. And if something's denied, the Board of Adjustments historically has been the commissioners. It was structured that way for a time. And if I understood correctly, there was an opinion expressed that said somebody's trying to get out of doing their job. They don't want to be held accountable for saying no. So that's how come this Board of Adjustment come to be. I could have misunderstood that. But for them to serve as the alternate doesn't seem like a terrible idea to me.
Yeah, very unlikely it would reinsert all 5 commissioners back
Right.
into the decision-making process.
Correct.
But, you know, they're certainly available and they're expected to be available. So unlikely that you would have both a member of the Board of Equalization, Board of Adjustment, I keep throwing the wrong term in there, Board of Adjustment, and also a commissioner unavailable to fill that spot.
Right.
It's a thought, but
I'm full of
They
questions.
also have the right to-
So on the board of adjustments, if there's a dispute, appeal, it goes to a court,
Superior Court.
superior court, not district.
Correct.
And you know where I'm going with that, from one of your commissioners is expressing interest in a district court position. So,
Well, he wouldn't be able to hold both offices concurrently anyway.
Can't be elected.
right, but the board of adjustment is an appointed committee, not an elected, and you said two, correct?
Right, I fully expect that if a commissioner were to come off of the Board of Commissioners and they were filling in as an alternate based on that, then whoever assumed their elected position would fill that role as the alternate on the Board of Adjustment. It wouldn't be a standing role that person would maintain.
Okay.
And I expect I know about that.
In other words, they don't.
Potential commissioner coming off and taking an appointment to Superior Court. And if that's the case, I seriously doubt he'd want to be an alternate at the ice cream machine.
Alternate item.
If this commissioner that I'm pretty well aware of may take an appointment at the Superior Court, he's not gonna want to be an alternate at the ice cream machine, much less the Board of
No,
Adjustment.
I wouldn't.
All he's gonna do is put his robe on, do his thing. When he's done, go to the house.
Right, right.
So-
But the thing is that if it's gonna be heard in the court and he's a judge in that court, then there's.
Chances, well, I'm
But
pretty
if he-
sure
but He's looking at district court, not superior.
if he puts on a robe either way, I seriously doubt he's gonna be anything, that'll negate his role as commissioner, correct?
Right, and he would be a district court judge. That's the role that he would fill, and these are going to appoint a Superior Court, so it's a non-issue. So I don't see that as being a problem.
And most judges that I know, that's what they do. They do their job, they go to the house.
He won't take that appointment with him, is basically what it.
Correct.
Yeah, that's a situation where the bylaws for the Board of Adjustment would specify if the alternate would be the commissioner, not the individual. Right. Sitting in the commissioner's seat.
All right, so we've got nominees, we got a Board of Adjustment members, we got alternates picked out. We need 3 more, or we're done.
Well, if you're gonna have 5 commissioners be your alternates, you really don't need the other alternates.
You don't need 3 more if you got the commissioner.
Well, then it's pointless to send them a recommendation on alternates on our side then.
You can send no recommendations for alternates. You can do 2.
Or you can put the 5 county commissioners' names down as the alternates.
Or just make a motion that they serve as alternates.
Right.
I make a motion that the county commissioners serve as the 5 alternates.
We gotta back out them 2 first.
I make a motion, we take these 2 alternates out. And put the 5 county commissioners in as the alternates.
We have a motion.
Can we pause on that for?
Sure.
I have a
I'll
comment.
withdraw my motion.
Well, just pause. Part of the reason that I understand for the planning board is to make recommendations using experience in the fields for land planning, development, that sort of thing, where the commissioners may lack that experience. Likewise, for the Board of Adjustment, typically you would want to have members with that experience of planning, development, construction, whatnot, to be able to make the call on some of these things and situations, scenarios that people may apply to the Board of Adjustments for. So do we not want to continue making some sort of recommendation of people that we feel or may have experience with that would have that type of knowledge? Because I assume not all the commissioners have land planning or development background.
Well, 3 of them's either attorneys or married to an attorney, the other's a banker. I'm pretty sure they've got their fair share of developing and building and land use and all of those stuff.
And I think the third variable is because it's quasi judicial type hearing, then that would take some additional training probably by the legal team if they don't already have it. Regardless what their other qualifications are, which the commissioners in theory already have that experience.
Okay.
But I guess my thoughts is, I mean, maybe I'm the oddball, but I just see a perceived conflict having commissioners make decisions like that as an elected official, especially given that they are needing to run for office.
Yeah.
And could have their political opponent, come before that board and they have to make a decision.
Well,
We would never know.
theoretically, they've already been exposed to that conflict anyway.
Correct.
For the lack
up to
of a board
now.
of adjustment.
Right.
The
I
legal
think- I
department
think-
would step up at that point and stop it anyhow.
Yeah, so to me, I think that is a very real potential. And I'm personally not a fan of the commissioners being on the Board of Adjustments personally for that potential. I'd rather it be a separate standalone issue, but
Gotcha.
I'm just one vote.
I'll just say this, the fact that the law by default has the Board of Commissioners be the Board of Adjustment unless a separate Board of Adjustment is appointed, is an acknowledgement that that conflict exists. And anything that we're gonna do here is gonna mitigate that inherent conflict of you made the ordinance and now you're deciding whether this situation applies or not. So I think the legislature kind of understands that that exists and they're giving you a way to kind of mitigate it. So I don't know that that conflict is necessarily a wrong one to have. And I think we're doing a lot here to make it better by saying, here's 5 neutral people. And the only way that a commissioner is going to be involved in the decision-making is if one of those people is absent or is conflicted out in a way that's much more meaningful. So to help ease your mind a little bit, I think the conflict is not so much the issue as it is being able to coach those people to make decisions that are not based on their own inherent interests and biases. And one of those is, I got to run for office and get reelected. And so it's easier to have them be one step away from that. So that's just something to think about.
Motion on the floor.
Repeat your motion, Mr. Vaughn.
Well, I move that we appoint the 5 county commissioners to be the 5 alternates.
We've got to remove the other 2 we've already voted on.
So I'm out of order.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
Just think about it. We're all tired. Think about it. Go again.
Well, then remove the alternates we've already appointed. That's my motion.
We have a motion or a second.
So just to be clear, the motion is to remove the 2 alternates and substitute them the 5 county commissioners.
Yes.
Correct.
The attorney said a while ago, like with Sandy, couldn't be on, there was a certain number of boards you could be on. That would be, couldn't that come into play with this?
How many commissioners could be on multiple boards?
Commissioners is elected
Yeah, so
and then appointed
yeah, so there, any appointment, any office or any appointment on a board that they serve as an ex officio member as being a commissioner doesn't count as one of those offices. In the statute, it says that. So if I serve on the board at ACC because I'm a commissioner, it's not because I was appointed by any other reason other than the fact that I'm a commissioner and a commissioner always fills that seat. And it'd be the same with this board of adjustment.
I didn't know.
Yeah, no worries. It's a good question. Good question.
I have a question, but I don't know if now's the time to ask it.
Sure.
But we're creating the board, or the intent of the county to create the Board of Adjustments is to remove a potential conflict of interest from the county commissioners.
Correct.
So in your motion, putting that back?
I don't know.
And I wouldn't necessarily categorize it as a potential conflict of interest. It's that for the commissioners to simultaneously serve as the Board of Adjustment,
It's not likely.
they have to operate in 2 separate spheres. So by their very nature as elected officials, they make legislative decisions, right? When you sit on Board of Adjustment, you make quasi judicial decisions. So when your applicant comes in here with a variance petition, Bob, who has never subdivided his property before, never built a house, or wasn't even aware that the county had setbacks, is all of a sudden in a situation where he has to convince his county commissioners, who typically make legislative decisions, to take off their legislative hats, put on their quasi judicial hats, and then make a quasi judicial variance decision. And so I think you can categorize it as a conflict of interest. I think it's more accurate to categorize it as two completely different types of decisions that they have to make.
I just want to make sure we weren't
And,
doing
and
what
kind
we're
of
trying not to.
troublesome and confusing for the average citizen who's bringing business before the county.
Thank you.
All right.
I just wanted
Is that accurate?
clarification.
I think it's accurate, and the board may decide not to do that. I think really what I was just saying is that's one of the options that was discussed. So if the planning board wanted to weigh in on their consideration of that option, then you're saying, hey, we support that idea versus having 5 alternates. Keep in mind too, and you have a lot more experience with this than I do, but being an alternate means that you have to be available, you have to be brought into the loop and fed this information, so that there's a workload on that person. And it's maybe an effort to try to take some of that away by having alternates that are more involved in county business day to day.
And saying, I think what this vote would do is create just one layer between that. So they won't be the 5 initial members. There will
They'll
be
just be an alternate.
an alternate.
Thank you for the clarification.
All right, we got a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
It does not pass.
What do you mean?
I think the no's outvoted my one aye. For mine and Bill's.
So to clarify, that means the 2 alternates that were still on the list remain on the list.
They still on the list, and you had 5 more. 3 more.
No, you don't have to. Or you can just say, we've got 2.
We got 2 and that's all we got.
That's all we need. Let's move on.
Mr. Chairman, I make another motion.
Whip it on.
We stop voting on alternates and call the 2 we've elected a done deal, and those are what we send.
I second that.
Call question.
Motion.
That we elect these 2 alternates and we stop with those 2.
Lindsay and Max.
Yes.
If they want more, they'll add more.
Motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah. It's 3 seconds,
Good.
actually.
All those in favor signify aye. Opposed, no. Is that it, Matthew?
The next item on the agenda is announcements and discussions, if there are any. If not, then it would be adjournment.
Christmas dinner.
There's a Christmas adjustment. Discussion.
Any update from the subcommittee?
I thought that was February.
We have nothing to report.
Any progress? Can't vote.
We have nothing to report.
And the Christmas dinner.
Getting real close. I'll get the stuff to Matthew and let him send an email out.
Do we have a date? proposed yet?
We have dates yet? Calendar's getting full.
Think it's gonna be Tuesday the 12th, but there's an existing possibility it could be Thursday the 7th.
That's pretty quick there.
Potential location?
Probably.
Have a good evening.
I mean,
Take care,
the
Dave.
7th is like next Thursday.
I wish it never happened, not at all.
Mr. Chair, I do got one announcement. I'm sure everybody probably knows the Grand Parade is Saturday and we're expecting almost double the attendance. So definitely, if weather permits, should be a great turnout. So I know the committee is working super hard. Alamance Rescue is covering a lot of any medical needs. So be able to make it out, come out. Just like Burlington's was, twice the size. One Saturday supposed to be just as big, well, not just as big as Burlington, but twice the size of previous years.
And about that, we've got 2 antique tractors that need drivers. So somebody's interested in driving a tractor in the parade, talk to me.
I ain't trying to create no calls after I ran into somebody. Do some work.
Make a motion. We adjourn.
Can I?
Second.
Okay. You beat me to it.
We ain't voted on it. You want to say something?
We haven't voted on it to adjourn. I do have a comment. or a request. The David Hadley that stepped out, he made a comment that when he last applied and was nominated, that was all he heard of it. There was a level of uncertainty. I don't know who from the planning department, or if it's a responsibility of the planning board to let people know where they stand in the application process, the planning board nomination process, and then the acceptance or nomination from the commissioners. I think there needs to be a clear line of communication so that people who apply understand where they stand in the scheme of things. So what is the typical process for that? Do we have one? I'm just curious.
I would say the typical process is if people apply for boards, then when the commissioners consider their application, if they're interested in tuning in to find out if they've been appointed, they tune into that meeting and find
So
out
it's the
if they've been
responsibility of
appointed.
the applicant to tune
And
into the meeting or
then
attend?
the only other step that I'm aware of is typically the clerk to the board will then notify individuals who have been appointed
Okay.
that they have in fact been appointed.
And we will somehow do a better job of that this
Okay.
time than apparently we did in the past. And I think probably we need to notify the people who were nominated tonight that didn't know they were considered. They probably need to get some kind of notification as well. So
Yeah.
to the extent we don't have contact information for those people, maybe we can reach out to them and let them know, hey, you
Yeah.
were brought up if your ears are burning. So
When,
Stephen, about the only thing that ever happens is the commissioners will think, they'll thank the other people that applied and said, we hope that you will reapply.
Right.
And that's about, I think, the extent of where it goes from. That's about it.
The best thing they
It
can
would
do
be
is
nice to
show
get
up
a
to the
letter
meeting
from
that they're on the
commissioners saying,
agenda for.
you wasn't selected, and it would, from the county, just a notification saying, okay, this is what happened.
yeah, I think we can do a better job with that.
Yeah.
If we failed at that last year.
Let them know, hey, you made the cut or you didn't.
Yeah.
At least
I
they have
think
it
we can
up,
do
right?
better with
All right, motion to adjourn. I'm sorry.
We
No, we've
adjourn.
already adjourned.
Okay.
That
We're
was
done then. That was an official comment. All right.
that. Unofficially, we'll do a better job.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Courtesy, we can always manage courtesy.